Alright, let's start this one off with a disclaimer confessionary intro segment. It's a thing now. I only got acquainted with Lord of the Rings in my early 20s. I know, it might sound weird, even unusual, but I never really knew about Tolkien's books as a child. Back in the day, most of what I read was comic strips, various folk tales, and later on books which were of a more humorous/satirical tone. Considering some of the books I had to read, emphasis on had meaning school, I doubt I would have even read Lord of the Rings at a younger age. The historical novel Eclipse of the Crescent Moon, for instance, depicted Hungary's struggle against the Turkish invaders in the 16th century, delivering the story through lengthy descriptions of locations, the appearance and equipment of the invading forces, and the battles that took place between the opposing armies. The book was very rich in detail, and admittedly I found the book a lot easier to read in my late teenage years than at the age of 11, when it was a compulsory reading for me, and at which time I didn't find the book appealing at all. Hey, hold on, old Niall, this isn't what I was promised in the title over there. I thought this is about Lord of the Rings. True. Disclaimer confessionary intro segment, remember? My first proper introduction to Middle-earth was through the MMORPG Lord of the Rings Online. The game itself didn't revolutionize the genre in any way. In fact, one might consider it just another WoW with a Middle-earth setting. For me, LOTR was the very first MMO I ever played, so the whole press number keys repeatedly to win concept was entirely new to me. Sure, the combat became a chore after a while, but the game world and the lore really got my interest. Exploring the Shire was probably one of the most memorable things I did in LOTR. As such, I wanted to know more about Middle-earth and decided to read the books as well. Old Niall, this is still not what you promised. Alright, fine, fast forward. Read the trilogy, enjoyed it a lot. Wanted more, watched the movies, enjoyed that too, and eventually got the game Lord of the Rings War in the North. And with that we have come to the topic of this video. War in the North is a role-playing action game in which you take the mantle of a hero from a fellowship of three: Andriel, the Elven Lore Master, Eredan, the Dunedain Ranger, and Farin, the Dwarven Champion. The game revolves around the group as they strive to foil the plans of a black Númenórean general, Agendaur. During the course of the story, the three heroes visit a wide range of locations Lord of the Rings fans might know from the books and the movies: Bree, the Atom Moors, Mirkwood, and the Barrow Downs, just to name a few. The gameplay itself can be divided into three different segments: combat, exploration, and interaction with the NPCs that you meet during your travels. After you arrive to a specific area of Middle-earth, chances you'll run into a group of orcs in a relatively short time. The combat system of the game includes light and heavy strikes, the latter of which can be most effective when a critical hit indicator appears over an enemy. If you manage to perform a heavy strike on such an enemy, smaller foes will immediately get decimated, while bigger ones, such as orc chieftains or trolls, will be either knocked off their feet or get stunned for a short duration. You can also block lighter attacks and roll out of the way of more dangerous enemies. Along the two types of basic strikes and the range mode that you can toggle anytime with the press of a button, the three characters also have a variety of active skills. Eredan can enter a stealth stance which makes him invisible to enemies for a time, while some of his other skills focus on dealing heavy damage with melee weapons or his bow. Farin can perform a battle cry which will increase his melee damage and damage resistance while staggering all enemies surrounding him. He also has active skills with which he can deal massive melee damage to either a single target or multiple enemies. Andriel's primary skill is creating a protective aura that blocks enemy projectiles and heals all allies standing in it, while her other skills allow her to perform special attacks with her staff. At one point of the game you'll gain an additional way of attacking enemies in the form of the eagle Balaram. Whenever you have Great Feathers available, you can summon him to attack a specific target, which is especially useful against tougher enemies and fortified out-of-reach positions like lookout towers. The game rewards you with XP based on your combat performance. If you can maintain a high combo, your kills will earn you more experience, and eventually you'll also enter Hero Mode, which provides additional damage to your attacks. Once you gain a new level, you can spend 3 points on your basic stats which influence melee and range damage, health and power, and 1 additional point that you can spend on skills mentioned before. In general, the combat system is rather rewarding and accessible, with a wide variety of enemies that each require different tactics to defeat. Personally, I prefer playing as Farron. For me, War in the North is the current definitive dwarf combat experience. If you want less of this,
You could have picked a better spot.
and more of this, this game has what you're looking for. After the battle cries and death throes have quieted, you enter the second of the segments mentioned before, exploration. While the path leading towards your objectives is mostly linear, you can discover many side tracks which may hold various rewards. Most of the time you run into barrels and crates that you can smash for smaller items like potions, arrows and gold. Normal and golden chests can also be found around the maps, which contain a wider range of valuables: weapons, armor, money, suckable stones, and so on. Side paths may unlock certain optional missions which, upon completion, give you the opportunity to choose a reward item out of a number of different options. Scattered around the maps there are also areas and resources which can only be accessed by certain characters. Eger can discover tracks which usually lead to hidden item caches and other containers. Andriel can detect and open magical doorways leading to secret areas, and she can harvest various herbs found around the map that she can use to craft different types of potions and buff items. Farron can smash through weaker walls to access secrets, and can also mine valuable gold nuggets in caverns. With all the breaking and looting of barrels, chests and secret areas, your inventory will quickly fill up. Instead of having a trade system, the game has the option of giving away items you don't need or can't use to other characters. This way you'll also be able to influence the equipment of AI-controlled allies as well. The other, more profitable way of freeing up your inventory is visiting a trader in one of the quest hubs of Middle-earth. Here you will have the option of buying and selling items, while blacksmiths can repair your broken equipment for a fee. Speaking of quest hubs, we have arrived to the third segment, interacting with NPCs. Places such as the town of Bree, a ranger camp at Sunfold, and Rivendell has a wide variety of people who you might be familiar with from other renditions of the Lord of the Rings universe. Along your quest you'll run into people like Aragorn, Glowin, Elrond, and Radagast the Brown.
And there you have it.
Perhaps you could explain further for those of us who do not speak the language of swallows.
NPCs, just like in your average RPG, are the main sources of quests in War in the North, but you can also learn a lot about the game world and the lore of Middle-earth by talking to them. The majority of these characters have at least a couple of conversation options, through which they answer questions such as what is Dol Guldur known for, or why doesn't Frodo fly to Mount Doom on an eagle. One thing I enjoyed about the interaction with NPCs is that many of them react in different ways to you depending on which character you play as. Dwarves, for instance, can relate to Farron more easily, while the elves of Rivendell welcome Andriel as their kin, and the content of their conversations changes accordingly. A rather nice touch, considering that talking to NPCs in other RPGs can often turn into skipping through conversations after one playthrough.
Shut your mouth, Harley Bramble. You don't have to spill your guts to every ragged vagabond that crawls in out of the wild.
Who are you to call another vagabond? Watch your tongue.
Returning to Frodo and Mount Doom, the story of War in the North serves as a side plot to the events of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Initially, Andriel, Farron and Eredin serve as a distraction to Agendaur's forces in order to make Frodo's journey towards Mordor somewhat safer.
Now this Hobbit is adrift on the road with enemies all around. I must find him before they do. And I need you to help me keep him safe.
After the Fellowship of Nine travels further south, the attention of the three heroes shifts to defeating Agendaur, thus decreasing the influence of Sauron in the north.
I learned at the hand of the Dark Lord himself. I am Sauron's greatest weapon in the north. You rush only to your death.
The story of the game runs pretty smoothly along with the plot of the trilogy. You often see references to the events of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, yet the plot of War in the North manages to remain original. In other words, it's not a revamped edition of an already existing storyline with recycled locations and events, which is a definite plus in my opinion. The reason for why I attempt to compartmentalize the gameplay in such a way is that this is all the game has to offer. You fight a bunch of orcs and trolls, you explore the surrounding area for loot, and you interact with NPCs for quests and lore. Rinse and repeat. Some might find this concept repetitive, but then again this is basically what action RPGs do, and in my opinion War in the North follows the idea pretty well. Earlier I mentioned AI-controlled companions, which raises an important question. Can you do co-op in the game? Yes, you can. In fact, it seems that War in the North is primarily designed for being played cooperatively, which becomes pretty evident when you play on your own. Remember the bit about hidden resources being available to certain characters only? This is especially true for solo gameplay. AI-controlled companions never open secret doorways, and you have no way of telling them to do so even if you know where these secrets are located. You have the option of changing characters and returning to previously visited areas, thus you can access every secret in the game, but it would have been a nice feature if the AI kept an eye out for them on their own. What about the performance of the AI in combat? For the most part it does its share of hitting and shooting at the enemy, and it usually rushes to your aid when your health is really low or when you fall in battle. You also have the option of telling your companions to attack a target or to defend an area, which is also a way of triggering Andriel's Sanctuary skill as Farin or Aradan. It would be nice to have more order options, however. Certain turret sections, for instance, would certainly be easier if the AI could be instructed to use mounted crossbows, which they don't do at any point of the game. I'm not saying, of course, that the AI makes the game impossible. It is very much playable, yet here and there you may notice something weird in their behavior. Example, the Fellowship is currently fighting a boss who sometimes emits ripples that knock you down. The NPC Ranger has the sense to stand next to me behind cover. Those two, on the other hand... Scenes like this makes you think that the AI is dumb, which, as I said, is not entirely the case, but these sort of instances definitely don't make a good impression. The enemy AI is also not entirely free of bugs. Most of the time melee units charge at you relentlessly, and sometimes they... don't? The graphics are in parallel to the AI in a way. Generally it performs well, but on occasion it does something that makes you go, what? Textures and models are simply missing in some cases. Look here, for instance. This door leads into a fortress, but it looks more like a gateway to White Shores. I'm supposed to fight Agendar over here, not pass on to the afterlife. These 2 points are the only bits of criticism I could think of concerning War in the North. The AI and the graphics sometimes present you with non-game breaking bugs. That's about it. Otherwise, I have enjoyed playing the game a lot. If you like the Middle-earth universe and thrashing hordes of orcs as a badass ranger, a dwarven warrior, or an elven lore master while collecting all the loot there is, you should give the game a go. You might find War in the North a worthy conflict to fight through. Thank you for watching a brief opinion on Lord of the Rings War in the North. If you have any remarks concerning the video, don't hesitate to leave a comment or send a message to Old Nile Depot. Your feedback is appreciated. Thanks again, Old Nile out.